right, well, welcome everyone to the Happy PharmD podcast. Today's episode, I have one of our coaches to join us. We're going to go over everything about her, and especially her coaching journey now, and some projects she has coming up in the pipeline with the Happy PharmD. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome Ms. Laura Licari to the Happy PharmD podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Let's jump right in. Go ahead and tell everyone about yourself, where you're from, where you went to school, and where you started your career at, where you are now.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me. I've been listening to the podcast for a long time, so this is really exciting for me. A little background on myself. So I'm from the Chicagoland area, lived here my whole life, went to undergrad suspecting that I wanted to be a pharmacist because my mom actually sent me to a place called Career Vision. So I actually was an early adopter, so to speak, of Strength Finders and Myers-Briggs personality testing, and it actually suggested that I should be a pharmacist. So I was like, all right, I guess I should learn what pharmacists do, and this was back in the late 90s. So I shadowed a couple pharmacists. My mom worked in healthcare, and I thought it was really great that they got to just focus on the medication management, and they didn't have to start IVs or change any bedpans or do any of the messy stuff. So I went to undergrad at Augustana College and I got a bachelor's, and I worked on getting decent grades so that I could apply to pharmacy school. And I do want to share with everyone, and I think this is actually really important. I was accepted to Midwestern University to graduate in 2005, and I had gotten a D in calculus in undergrad, as I suspect some of our listeners have as well, because it's calculus. And so I had to take it again over the summer after graduation, and I really was not that focused. I was back at home, and I was out with my friends, and I was like, all right, I've got into pharmacy school, no problem. I got a D again. So I had to call Midwestern. I had to say, it's okay, right? Like, I know you said we have to get a C in all the prerequisites, but I can still go, right? And they said, no, sorry, you can't go. So I had to call all my friends and family and tell them that I wasn't going to pharmacy school. And I took a year off. And I just want to share with everyone that struggle, I went from crying on my living room floor and being so embarrassed to picking myself up. And at the time it was 2001. I actually got a call from the Illinois Eye Bank. And this again was, they had gotten my resume from the Augustana College resume referral service, which, was like kind of an old school LinkedIn these days. And they called and they said, hey, we're looking for biology majors to work here at the iBank. And I thought I meant internet bank. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense to me. And they're like, no, EYE, iBank. And I was like, wow, okay, what's an iBank? So for the next little bit over a year, I worked on procuring corneas for transplant in the Chicagoland area. So I actually did the processing of calling the next of kin and obtaining consent, which was very humbling and really hard, but very fulfilling. And then I would process the corneas. I'd actually look at the tissue under a microscope, make sure they were suitable for transplant. And then, yes, Chris, I actually went to the morgue in the hospital and would procure the corneas from the donors.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. Yep. So I hope everyone has had something to eat before they listen to this. And it was amazing and it was extremely fulfilling. And I am very grateful that if I had gone to pharmacy school, I would not have had that experience. And that experience really shaped me as a person to be very grateful for life. It really imparted a different type of work ethic and what's important. And then I actually continued to procure corneas during pharmacy school as a side hustle. And so I, as I suspect a lot of people, did not always have a regular sleep schedule. So I would be up studying late And back in the day, again, this was 2002. So I would get a page and I would, on my pager, and I would go to, a hospital usually about within an hour and go procure corneas. And then a courier would come pick it up at my house and I would get paid $100. So it was pretty great. It was pretty great. So then I took calculus 2 more times. That's right. So a total of 4 times. And I finally got a C+ the last time. So then I went to Midwestern University from 2002 and graduated in 2006. I was a very average student. I had a 2.85 GPA. I was not that involved. I lived at home. So I was very distracted. I went out with my friends. I worked 8 to 10 hours a week at my local supermarket pharmacy I'd been at for a few years. And I just I took it seriously, but I was kind of like, yeah, I'm living my life. I knew I didn't want to do a residency. I knew I wanted to work for that same community supermarket pharmacy. This was again back in 2006 when the economy was a little bit different and pharmacy was a little bit different as far as we were still experiencing a terrible shortage. So I went and worked for Jewel Osco Pharmacy. I really loved it. I was the pick. I was an MTM specialist. So actually 32 hours a week I was the pick, and 8 hours a week I would go and do CMRs, comprehensive medication reviews for Medicare Part D patients. That was really groundbreaking in the late 2000s to do MTM as part of being a community pharmacist. And then I was sitting at a Illinois Pharmacists Association conference, and I was sitting next to what turned out to be the branch manager of the CVS Caremark specialty pharmacy here in the suburbs of Chicago, which I know, Chris, you're very familiar with, as that is your employer. And he said, do you know what specialty pharmacy is? And I said, no, I've heard of it, which was a lie, because again, in 2011, I had never heard of specialty pharmacy. And that was not, when I was in school, we did not learn. We learned about pulmonary hypertension, of course, and multiple sclerosis and rheumatoid arthritis, but it was not really a category, of a practice of pharmacy. And so he said, why don't you come and take a tour of the pharmacy and see what we do? Because it's this mail order pharmacy with a telephonic outreach, and it's a really unique model of practice. And I was like, okay. And in my mind, I thought, sure, I'll spend one of my precious days off going to learn more about pharmacy. Okay. So he invited me on a weekday, and I had a day off because it was my weekend of working every other weekend. And I went in and I was amazed that there was 100 pharmacists and pharmacy technicians in one room, all talking to patients. They had a team that did benefits verification, so I wouldn't have to process insurance, which is, of course, everyone's least favorite part of community. I didn't have to run a cash register. I could just do the part that I loved, which was counseling patients on their medications, and I didn't have to worry about any of the operational or administrative stuff. And that was mind-blowing. I do want to be honest with the audience that, it is a pay cut. It was a pretty significant pay cut to go from community to specialty, of course. It's just a different level of commitment. And so the salary reflects that, but it's Monday through Friday. I had weekends off. My commute was worse, which was significant, but I was very happy to have a Monday through Friday position. And I'll be honest, after taxes, it really wasn't that much of a difference. And I was able to take vacation when I wanted. I could, ask for a day off here and there. At the same time in 2000 and at the end of 2010, I had been asked by a mentor to join the Illinois Pharmacists Association Board of Directors, to which I said yes. And then I Googled what's a board of directors, because I didn't know at all what that commitment meant, but she asked me, and I didn't want to let her down, so I just said yes. And that started 10 years of service to the Illinois Pharmacists Association. And so I was able to get a Wednesday off to go to the board meeting in Springfield, Illinois, which is about 3.5 hours away from me. and CVS was actually very supportive of that. And in community, it would have been extremely difficult to get 4 random Wednesdays off a year to go to these meetings. So, again, it was really meaningful to join that board, and transitioning to a job that afforded that, even though it was less salary, and I'd been out of school for 5 years, right? So it was a little bit of an ego punch, but it is very fulfilling. So I was at Caremark, CVS Caremark, which at the time then transitioned to CVS Health, for 2 years in the pulmonary arterial hypertension team. And that was actually really rewarding. The patients are so wonderful. They've been feeling bad for such a long time. And then you give them this medicine and they're like, oh my gosh, I can go to the grocery store. I can get my mail. I can walk up the stairs. It was really lovely, but it was very emotionally trying. They would be doing well and then take a turn for the worse, as of course it's a very complicated multifactorial disease. And I would be talking to them for like 3 months at a time, every other day, titrating their medication. And then I would call and their partner or spouse would pick up the phone and say, they had passed away. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was really emotionally trying. So just under 2 years, a friend over on the PBM side at Caremark sent me a job posting for a clinical advisor, which are 2 words that sound really great together. So I was like, cool, okay, yeah, this sounds great. And so I actually moved over to the CVS Health PBM side, where I was a clinical advisor. So I was a pharmacist that was working with employer clients. So for example, like JetBlue was one of my clients, and I would analyze their drug spend. And I was actually well positioned because I had community pharmacy experience, which the questions that I would get would be generated from employees of that company, right? Hey, why isn't this drug covered? So I could answer those questions because I was a community pharmacist for 5 years. And then they wanted pharmacists with specialty pharmacy experience because that was, as you know, Chris, a very growing spend. Humira is the number 1 drug in the world, and that was popping up on everyone's top 10 lists of drug spend, and they wanted to know what is specialty pharmacy, so I could articulate that. And then it was another pay bump. So then I went back up to community pharmacy pay. And just so everyone knows, at that point I had been out of school for 7 years, and this clinical advisor job, I would not have been able to get right out of school. You would have had to do a managed care residency, or it required 5 to 8 years of work experience. So if you want to talk to me about moving into managed care, I would be happy to help you with that. But I do think people, if you want to get a prior auth job or, a clinical review position, and you're coming out of community, we can strategize on how to do that. We have to really highlight some unique skills, but to actually get this kind of higher level clinical advisor job, it would require specific experience, and you do have to wait a little bit. So as soon as I updated my LinkedIn, Chris, I had a lot of people going, how do I get this job? And I was like, well, you're 2 years out of school and you don't have a managed care residency, and they're not going to look at you right now. So I just want to be very clear about that. So I had that position for 5 years, and it was wonderful. I actually really loved it. Every day was different. The last 3 years I got to work from home, which was awesome. And, you're still expected to produce at a very high level, but being able to throw in a load of laundry and just eat your lunch at home was great. You have to be very disciplined in order to work from home, as you know, and so it does have its disadvantages, but I know that that's the flexibility that a lot of people are looking for right now. And that's attractive, especially, during COVID. So during this whole time, I was working my way through the Illinois Pharmacists Association Board of Directors. I started as a regional director. We have geographic region. So I was Cook County. So I was responsible, for the members that lived in Chicago, relaying to them what the board was working on and what the association was working on. And it was really rewarding. And I was encouraged to run for vice president. And then I was about 7 years into my commitment, and I was like, okay, I want to be president. This is like my next step. This is really important to me. And so in 2018 to 2019, I was the seventh woman since 1880 to serve as president of the Illinois Pharmacists Association of IPHA. And that was amazing and wonderful. And I implore everyone to please join their state association if you haven't already. It's like, 4 hours of your paycheck, and it's really important. And that can be a whole nother podcast episode. Chris, thank you for inviting me back already.
Absolutely.
Then I, during that time, so I bring this up is because I would actually go, because I worked from home for 3 years, I had the flexibility to block off my calendar, and I would go, there's four, and then at the time, 5 different pharmacy schools here in the Chicagoland area. And I would go to their campus and present on the importance of professional association membership while you're a student, and then most importantly upon graduation. And I would talk about advocacy and important legislative efforts that IPHA and subsequently, American Pharmacists Association, APHA, was working on. And so I actually met a lot of people in academia. And I always thought that my unique personality was well suited for academia, and my strengths finders indicates that I am a teacher, and so that aligned with my enthusiasm for the practice of pharmacy versus direct patient care. So a faculty position opened up at Roosevelt University, and they were looking for someone to develop the professional development and leadership course series, which is maybe our listeners don't know, but in 2016 they revamped the PharmD curriculum to put more of an emphasis on soft skills. So I was hired. So again, everyone, moved from managed care into academia without prior teaching experience, but it was because I spent a lot of time networking. I mean, I probably did one presentation a month at different pharmacy schools. And I spent a lot of time networking then with the faculty and the advisors of the different professional associations on campus. And so when I would go to Roosevelt, I was just very, hi, nice to meet you, and increase my network. And so when a position opened, I had a friend who did work there. So that helped. Of course, it helped that I'm from Chicago. So I knew some other people that worked there, right? It was right in my network. But they were really looking for someone to develop and work on teaching the students professionalism, leadership, self-awareness, cultural sensitivity. And those were all attributes that I had cultivated through my IPHA work. And, subsequently, like during my actual professional employment, it was actually more this board of directors position. And so I applied for the job, and I have been there for 2.5 years, and I love it. And I am very grateful for my entire path. And I hope that everyone can appreciate, again, I did not do a residency, and yet I'm in academia. I'm 14 years out, so that doesn't happen overnight. But when you are strategic, I was sort of strategic. I probably could have been more strategic about my career. But most importantly, I said yes to everything. And that has been my biggest asset, is that I said yes. I also implored mentors along the way to guide me when I said yes. What should I do next? And that has also been a big part of my success.
And I'm
So,
curious,
yeah.
if you like reflect back to all the career paths because you kind of dipped your toes in a little bit of everything. How is it like, your work-life balance and in general, like your overall enjoyment with your career? Like, how has it changed through each path? Like when you reflect back?
That is a great question, because self-reflection is actually something that I am learning is really important. The older you get, if you don't look back to see, did the choices I make really impart who I am, we don't really learn from anything, and then we can't make informed decisions for the future. So for me, I think taking a risk and getting out of my comfort zone has been very beneficial to me. And I know that a lot of people who are listening to this potentially on their commute to their chain pharmacy job that they're really frustrated with, part of the reason that we don't leave is that it's hard. It's really hard to change. I will tell you, I started in academia, and I was 38. I was, mature. I wasn't a kid. I had had 2 other job changes. It was so hard. There were days that I could not put a sentence together. I was so cognitively fatigued. And then serving as president on top of that, which is just a huge time commitment. Again, so rewarding, and I am so grateful for that opportunity. But my friends and family were actually like, "Are you okay?" And all I could say is like, "Yes." Like, I was just so emotionally and again cognitively fatigued. But upon reflection, again, not passing calculus, not getting into pharmacy school, working at the eye bank, and having these job transitions that were so difficult. If I look back, it's not my successes that defined me, it was my failures and it was my struggles. And those experiences is when I grew the most. And I hope everybody takes the time to reflect on that, because it really just occurred to me a few years ago that, oh my gosh, the really low points in my life are when I grew and then I came into the light, and like I figured out who I was, and I persevered, and I was gritty. And my successes, like being president, again, I'm so proud, but like I'm more proud of that I started a new job and was president. Like, I hope people understand, like, again, your successes are lovely, but no one asks you what your GPA is from pharmacy school. It doesn't matter. It matters if you want to get a residency and if you want to do certain things, of course. But in the end, I don't reflect back on that. What I reflect are the times that I picked myself up and kept going. That has been most important to me.
I love that. No, that's like the great answer. I think it's so true though. So if you let like the hardships weigh you down, or you cause you to kind of give up or just stay where you are or not kind of move forward, or you compare to someone, who tried to spin a positive on it and keep pushing through and inspired you to keep going and grow and change and improve. It's a huge difference. So I love that answer. And especially you're making a lot of references to those listening, if they're at their, the current position that they're unhappy with, they're still in school or not sure what they want to do. And I know a lot of these roles take time and experience, but on top of just, of course, you need a couple of years in potentially to get into these roles of experience. What other things do you recommend for those maybe who are, 5-10 years out and just like, where do I begin? Like, it sounds overwhelming. And, what kind of things would you, just to kind of get the ball rolling per se, what kind of things would you recommend that they kind of start?
And that is a great question, because it can feel overwhelming to even consider making a big career change. Number one, join your state pharmacy association. That investment creates a network of local employers, right? And local support system. The biggest part of being part of this is that honestly, it has created a family for me. I've already been on my group text message with the past 5 presidents and the staff of IPHA, and we text every single day about personal and professional issues, right? It's a support group, and we live in the state of Illinois, some of us live 7 hours apart from each other, but we live this life together. Number one is to be a part of that networking. You never know who is hiring. Now, you probably won't be in person at meetings or, conferences during COVID. That's actually better. You don't even have to leave your house. You don't have to drive 4 hours to your nearest pharmacy conference. You can network with people through LinkedIn. Um, Join a committee. I know people are like, but I don't want to be on a conference call, while I'm trying to homeschool my kids during COVID. I'm telling you, most committees require very little attention. It's like one conference call a quarter, and you get to know a group of people that are working on really cool things. So honestly, to me, I think people are like, what can my pharmacy association do for me? And there's kind of like a show me what you got. And I would like to reframe it as what can you do for your pharmacy association, because that opportunity to be a part of that network is invaluable. So that would be the number one thing. Number two would be vision casting. I had the benefit of doing a mini faculty mastermind over the summer with other pharmacy faculty women. Shout out to Brooke Griffin of the 21st Century PharmD for organizing that. And it was wonderful. And we did a mastermind, again, is you get a group of people and you input stuff into the group, and then everyone reflects back, and so you get the benefit of this group think. And we did vision casting, and to me, that has been really important. So for our listeners, it is hard to know where your destination is if you don't identify it. And then you kind of go on this journey and you could be meandering around not knowing, like, where's my final destination. Take the time to write down where you want to be in a year, where you want to be in 5 years, where you think you want to be in 10 years, and be specific. Make it a SMART goal, right? And that imparts for you, where do I want to go? And it helps you start to focus in on that end goal.
Perfect. No, I love that. And I know because we're getting close to the end here, and I will invite you back so we can talk more about coaching as well. But I just because we're on the tail end, I wanted to make sure we had time for making a mini announcement. I know we're going to go for our listeners out there. We're going to go much more in depth next week with Laura and Alex, who will be joining us as well. But if we could just give a quick little ounce of information on that, go right ahead.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. Uh, I am really excited that the Happy PharmD is going to add to its portfolio of coaching opportunities. We are actually starting a membership subscription service. So you would be able to be a part of a supportive and positive community, of which I am the community manager. And we are capturing pharmacists who want to make a change. Maybe they're not exactly ready for one-on-one coaching, but want to, just what we talked about, want to figure out how to refocus their goals to transition into a new career. And we have very specific content for you in order to achieve that. And then very importantly, it is creating an instant network as well, kind of like the mastermind, where we are going to help you focus as a group on how you can achieve those goals. So I'm really excited about it.
No, me too. And for everyone out there, we obviously will have some announcements on that, but we're going to be doing that one live. So I'm really excited about that. And super stoked for that, and can't wait to see everyone's input on it and everyone's thoughts. So but yeah, as we close up here, also I'll bring in one question about coaching, since we haven't been able to talk too much about that yet. And I know obviously you added that to your resume as well, becoming a coach recently for Happy PharmD. Just for anyone out there, especially for those who, with those 3 pointers you had in terms of initial steps, how much of an impact do you see coaching in that as well, with those 3 initial steps of someone trying to make a change or uh, growth in their career?
I have really reflected a lot on mentoring versus coaching, right? Like, I think I'm a good mentor if you want to move into managed care, if you want to move into academia. I think I'm a great coach because I love being a pharmacist and I'm enthusiastic and I can see the potential for the future. So I think it's a difference in mindset. And coaching is what is going to unlock in you the enthusiasm, the grit, and the determination to make that change. And it's very hard to do it on our own, or we'd all be in our amazing dream jobs by ourselves. That is incredibly hard. Even I made a lot of missteps still in my career. I wish I had done coaching to be more strategic, to get into positions quicker than if I had just tried to do it on my own. And so that is the second part of it too. Number one, it helps you to focus. Number two, it expedites that process of getting that job that really puts joy in your heart.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the hardest part is like, as pharmacists, we're very stubborn and you try to do it yourself, but a lot of times you need someone to help.
That's an understatement.
You need help with someone to help you look from another perspective or think outside of your comfort zone or box. Something that could be right here, but you just didn't realize it, and get you right on that path. So no, thank you so much for being on today's episode. If anyone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way?
That is great, Chris. And it's been my pleasure. Absolutely. You can reach me at laura@thehappypharmd.com or Laura Licari, Licari, pharmd@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to having you again on the podcast soon.
Likewise. Thanks, Chris.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on the Happy PharmD podcast. I hope you took in a lot of helpful and useful information from this episode with Laura Licari, one of our fellow Happy PharmD coaches. I really thought it was useful to hear just about her past experiences and her transitions that she's made throughout her pharmacy career since graduating from college. Especially for those out there who either are about to graduate from pharmacy school, or those who have been practicing pharmacy for 5, 10, 15 years or longer and are just looking to make a transition. I really think it's helpful just to hear other people's perspective on that and their past history and just self-reflect. But of course, it is very doable regardless of your situation to make a transition into that career path that you've always been looking for, especially if asking for the advice through a coach or just as a mentor. We're always here to help and to help provide further information and to help you think further outside of the box and to help you think outside of your comfort zone to make that transition where you can find a true career that makes you happy and something that you truly enjoy. Again, please reach out to us with any questions, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.